During the medieval era, spanning the years from about 1200 to 1800 AD, the great five powers of Europe, those being England, France, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, set about building hundreds of thousands of ships designed for exploration to go to the four corners of the globe and ascertain the true nature of the world they lived in and come back to Europe, bringing them something they hadn't seen before. Now, a great deal of that effort was put toward where we live now, North America and the Western world. But who's to say that they didn't venture farther? We have shown on this channel many, many times that what we are taught about Antarctica is not quite accurate. There are things down there that just do not jive, things we've been able to show using imagery with Google Earth Pro. Over the last 3 weeks, we have dedicated this channel to nothing but that. The vast majority of those images and videos were recorded 3-4 years ago. Put some new thumbnails on, some new titles, and a brand new audience has been able to see things that they've never been able to see before. Today, however, we're going to do a brand new video, one that's never been done before, with some of those finds and a couple of different ones. The image on your screen is Antarctica, with all of the ice removed. The British Topographical Survey was able to do this a year or two ago, and what was shown shocked the science world. That beneath the ice sheet in Antarctica, there are places where it's perfectly habitable. And that opens up a whole new area of science that we've seen the Russians and the Chinese and the Indians jump into both feet, while North America has been retreating from the continent. Now, we are going to redirect this channel in 2024 primarily towards Antarctica. It was something that we did a long time ago that we kind of gravitated away from. With the current situation now here on social media, there is no safer place. And that's going to be kind of a topic that we cover today. That one of the reasons I think so many are fascinated with Antarctica is that it represents a new safe place to go, away from the coming tyranny. Now, any other topics we're going to have to talk about over at Patreon. Thank you. God bless all of you for your support over there. You are making the critical difference now between the channel continuing and it having to close up shop like so many others have. If you'd like to join us over there, if you'd like to just support the Florida Maquis to keep this going, $1 a month. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but with 130,000 subscribers here on YouTube, even if single-digit percentages would step up, it would make the difference. Over there, unlike so many other things, you can kick the tires for 90 days. Look at all the videos, see what we're talking about. If it's for you, it's only $1 a month. If it's not for you, after 90 days, you can get a full refund of those $3. No questions asked. We partner with Vimeo. We can take the gloves off. Now, it's been a couple weeks since we've done a video over there. We're going to do a new one. There's a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about, but we can't talk about it here. We're no longer allowed to express free opinions that aren't, how shall we say it? Unoffensive to anyone under any circumstances. So, with that having been said, 4 minutes in, let's get right into it. A safe place, a refuge, someplace to get away from all the craziness, someplace to get away from government tyranny. I remember stumbling across this artist's interpretation of a castle out in the mountains, frozen mountains somewhere, with two giant silos behind it, and it kind of stuck with me because I wondered what was going through the mind of the artist and where would this be? That you would have someplace where you would have enough, I guess, sustenance to fill two giant silos. Could there be some place behind, perhaps a place that goes into the mountains, like over here, to an underground area, where perhaps things were very different and you had different places where you could take refuge? I see these lights in this small building and I wonder, could something like this be behind that? Now, I know these are all artist representations, but this is the reality that we saw a long time ago with the world retreating into castles. These are the remnants of castles. And very strangely, when you look down on this from above, all you see are, of course, the walls, the roofs are all gone. But strangely enough, in Antarctica, we have found images that look very much like this. Now, this is clear evidence of civilization. Is this? But there's even more. There's even more to talk about, and it's very high tech. It's something that we've covered a long time ago for those of you who have been with the channel. Let's get right down to Antarctica. We're 5.5 minutes in. I think the first place that we need to go to talk about this is this place that I've labeled Bridge Over a Gully, because it shows so many different things that would indicate a one-time human presence. Now, to the naked eye, it looks like, okay, well, it's a bunch of rocks. Why would you think that there was ever anybody living here? Well, you have to zoom in a little closer than this. Now, we're looking at this from eye altitude for about 3,000 feet. Let's zoom in a little farther and a little closer, and let's see what we can determine here. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let's look even closer. Why are these angles all so perfect? Why does this look like buildings and streets right here? Yes, the tops look like they're covered in rock, but some of this looks very, very artificial. And what makes me believe this is the remnants of a long-lost civilization right here is what's very near it. You see, there's a passageway that goes through this mountain onto a vast plain. But when you look on the top of that mountain, you see an artificially constructed walkway from one side to the other with a passage underneath. And where does that lead? Well, it leads to this area here, which would be the perfect place for an outpost. And what you can see right here is what looks like the giant parapet of what would be some type of a fortress with lookouts. Now, you have to zoom out to see why this would be so strategic to have this place here. See, everything you see, it's frozen. This all used to be water. This all used to be water. This would be an ideal place to have. You could see for 100 miles from that altitude. In every direction, you could see ships coming and going. It would be incredibly, incredibly strategic. Now, here is the cool part about this. It's only right outside of McMurdo Station. Now, think of all of the places we could have gone and set up a station in Antarctica. Well, where we chose, less than 100 years ago, is right where it looks like somebody else chose, maybe thousands of years ago. See, to me, that's evidence that if they did it and we did it, there's probably a good reason. Also, in other parts of Antarctica, you can see things that just don't jive to wind, ice, rock, and snow. They just don't. It doesn't make any sense at all. Let me see if I can get the angle on this correct so that folks can really see this. I have this area squared out with a polygon here. And I'll give you all these locations, by the way, down in the comment section. Not the comments. Well, maybe I will. First pinned comment or the description. Now, from high above, you see, okay, well, it looks like a bunch of snowdrifts. Maybe a few caves here and there. What's really to be paid attention to? Well, when you zoom in closely, we're getting down to about eye altitude about 1,000 feet. Less than that now, about 500 feet. Do you see this right here? This perfect square emerging from underneath the ice with something perfectly diagonally cutting it right across. And when you zoom out farther, look over here. You see that same pattern here and here. There's definitely something underneath the snow, underneath the ice here. And that this area has decided to just act differently then everything else around it would show that perhaps the melting in Antarctica is beginning to reveal things that just don't agree with what the standard messages about Antarctica never having had any type of intelligent civilization. One of the greatest finds I think that we ever discovered was this bow. I've had many people ask, where are these coordinates? Where are these coordinates? I don't know how anyone could look at this and say that this perfect structure, right here, perfectly shaped structure with what clearly looks like wind around it, where the wind has hit it and moved around it. The snow would take away everything else, but this shows that this is something very, very different. The shape is just unmistakable for the bow of a ship. You can even see the angle here where the bow breaker would be. It's just one of these amazing images that every time you revisit it and you look at it, you would have to think, how could people have missed this? Why are there not people down there studying this? I think there are. But let's get right to the real meat of this, because there's been some new information come out about the replacement for the SR-71 Blackbird or the F-22 Raptor. And some years ago, I discovered this location in Antarctica where it looks very much like there is some type of a downed experimental aircraft setting here on the ice. This would, of course, be the bow. This would be the back. This would be the cockpit. Now, the reason I showed this is because a lot of these new images coming out for the replacement for the SR-71 or for the F-22 look like this almost exactly. Now, you see in this particular image, the pronounced center ridge. The SR-71 used to have these two giant engines. Well, as you can see, they've been reduced greatly, and you can see the two fins here. Here's another image of these replacement aircraft. Once again, giant pronounced centerline ridge, right from the back of the cockpit all the way back to where the engines are, and then these stabilizers. Now, this particular one has that giant pronounced ridge, but the stabilizers fold down flat, reducing its radar image, its cross-section. And like I said, I didn't create these images. These are right from the U.S. military. And here's another one. Once again, the exact same thing where you see the triangular shape, the two fins at the back, and the pronounced ridge. Now, here's the image of the craft on the ice in Antarctica. Now, you might say, are you sure that's not just you seeing things? Well, let me show you something using Google Earth Pro that disproves it. Now, this is Google Earth Pro. You have to use a computer to see this. It's not like the same Google Earth that you use with your phone. Down here in the lower right, it shows what they call an imagery date, 11/26/2011. Now, up here in the upper left, you have a little slider where you can look at the same location when satellites are passing over at different times. Now, this was taken the 26th of November, 2011. This next image I'm going to show you was only taken 2 days prior, 11/24/2011. Now, you have to ask yourself a question. Why would somebody in high resolution pass a satellite over the remotest area of Antarctica and take a picture of the exact same thing twice? See, this is just a different time of day when the sun is at a different angle, and what they're seeing here can't quite be seen all that well. But the next 2 days later, when the sun is at a different position, they take another picture, and lo and behold, there is their lost aircraft. What I think we're seeing here is the use of this technology, Google Earth Pro, by the military to locate a lost downed aircraft that went down over Antarctica where it was testing. And they knew generally where to look, that it was down on the ground somewhere, but not exactly where. And finally, somebody found this. And that's why we have these images in high res. And they probably thought at the time, nobody will ever know. Nobody will ever find it. And we can always just say it's wind, ice, rock, and snow. Well, now that we can look at the shape on this, and like I said, this was way back in 2011. This is, how many years ago is that? 13 years ago. Which would make sense, because we know that what we see now from the military is almost always 10 years behind what they really have. I enhanced this with a little bit of extra light to show this, where you can see these exact same structures, these vertical stabilizers that can be lowered and raised, this high pronounced ridge, the exact same shape of the aircraft. It's mind-boggling to me that it was about 100 years ago when this country thought there was so much to be gained by exploring Antarctica that they set about creating vehicles like this one, the Antarctic Snow Cruiser, and put huge amounts of effort into going down there to explore it. And here we are 100 years later, and we know less about Antarctica than we did then. Now, some might say, well, we know this and we know that and we know the other. We don't. Because the more you explore something, the more you'll want to. Now, people talk about Operation High Jump, what the Germans may have done. I'm not sure if that explains it completely. See, we've seen images like a very popular one in the upper left. This has been all over the internet. Not very far from this, though. Under the ice, there are these images if you use Google Earth Pro, and they are the exact carbon copy of what has been seen in our skies for going on 70 or 80 years now. These disc-shaped craft. But yet, nobody says, hey, look at Google Earth Pro. They've captured it. We've even shown this picture on the right from Antarctica. The spitting image carving of King Harald Hardrade of, I believe it was Norway in 1100. Literally, it looks exactly like him. But yet nobody says anything. Believe me, there is a concerted effort now, which is the exact opposite of what was going on with the Great Five Powers of Europe. Back then, the thirst and the quest for knowledge was insatiable. The Italians, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, Great Britain put huge amounts of wealth and resource into building ships, a huge portion of they never saw again. They sailed over the horizon and off they went. And building ships at that time was a major undertaking, huge undertaking. Just the sails alone were an incredibly expensive, time-consuming process. To put that amount of wood together and get everything together and then put a crew together. Maps were like gold. They didn't all go to North America. One final thing let's show down in Antarctica. We talked about the bow of that ancient ship. Another entire area completely. Setting on the ice, frozen. What looks like a fleet of 4 ships. You have a large, very large, what looks like aircraft carrier here. Something a little bit more, perhaps a surface submarine or a cruiser here, but definitely a larger battle cruiser here. And then another smaller ship here. Some have even said, you have 2 ships and two mooring stations. That makes perfect sense because I want to show you something here. You see this ship right here? You see how it has this angle? Look at the angle of this right here. If this were a mooring station, that would make perfect sense as well. Same thing here, but you're never going to convince me that these two, at least this one and this one for sure, that those aren't ships. And what else did we bring up today? One final brand new location. Way far inland. What looks very much like a staircase right here. And where does it go? When you look at the entire area, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. It just looks not natural. Covered in ice and snow, absolutely, but definitely not a naturally occurring thing. Whether this is part of a step pyramid or not, I've never seen ice and snow just do this on its own. Cut itself into all these 90-degree angles. But I have seen that occur on the rooftops and on the outlines and shapes of buildings that get covered in snow, for sure. And this would be the biggest story that would change the face of what we call popular news. If this got out that there were things to be discovered here from a civilization that there's no historical record of, oh, the amount of people coming down here. I mean, I think the Indians know. Indians meaning from India, people from India. The Russians know. The Chinese know. To some extent, I believe the South Africans know about it. The Argentinians definitely know about it. And I think it's being kept under wraps because this could mean a complete paradigm shift in the power structures where we live. So, once again, that's just a small fraction. That was Mount Erebus, I believe, of what can be found here using a computer-based Google Earth Pro. Like I said, the Google Earth on your phone doesn't show this kind of stuff. It doesn't show the high-res imagery. It doesn't have the ability to run you through the historical imagery on this. To change aspect on it is very difficult. And you really need the big screen. You need this is a 24 or 27 inch screen you're looking at. So I will leave that there, 20 to 23 minutes in. But this is the direction of the channel. This is where we're going to be going. We have hundreds of finds to cover, and from all different corners of the discovery world, so to speak. Things that just don't make sense to the natural occurrence of nature. So I will leave it there. Once again, God bless all you guys. Thank you so much. I very, very much appreciate it. Thank you for hanging in the last 3 weeks with all of the reruns. We're going to get a lot of new content out, and over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, we are going to let loose like never before in the next video. There's some things I'm going to share with you over there that it's going to shock you, honestly, about what's really going on behind the scenes with these platforms and how they are using different tactics and techniques to get people to shut up. So I will leave you there. God bless. Merry Christmas. Pray for each other. Lift each other up. I'll pray for you. Pray for me, please. I sure need it. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.